Welcome back to the F1 2019 career mode here, guys, and you join me for the Spanish Grand Prix in Barcelona, one of my favourite tracks on the calendar, and I'm certainly hoping we can carry on a renewed forward swing of momentum after crashing back down to reality in China. We're bringing some good upgrades to the car here. We've got both a front and a rear minor upgrade to the downforce. We've also got a durability upgrade to the ICE, because I'm finding out that's what's wearing out the fastest on our engine components so far. And unfortunately, we did have a failed upgrade for the spark plugs for engine power. So sadly, that hasn't come. Hopefully, we can get to work on that this weekend and bring that in place for the Monaco Grand Prix. So over the course of the year, we can continue the development of the car. Now, interesting enough, Spanish Grand Prix, it's going to be mighty wet. And this is going to be my first race really in full wet conditions. Full wet weather tyre is going to be in use at the start of the race, moving on to the inters period later on. So that'll give me the opportunity to see how my skills fare, because in 2018 I certainly wasn't the best. Now, looking at the development chart, looks as if Ferrari had squeaked ahead a couple of races ago. Mercedes have pulled that back to be level pegging. Red Bull closing in, and Haas have overtaken Renault to be the fourth fastest car. Slight upgrades from Racing Point, McLaren, ourselves. Williams bought an upgrade. They're now up there with Alfa Romeo. So now when you look at it, really, all cars bringing upgrades to the European season, and that European kicks off with qualifying.
Qualifying's about to kick off any moment here at the Circuit Barcelona Catalunya. No doubt that today will be full of action on the track.
So here we are, very final few moments of the session before coming out. We've already done one lap time. Unfortunately, it put us a solid P19, so we do need to improve on that with this final lap. Our Delta kind of okay coming out the final corner. We have got a McLaren in our slipstream as we charge down towards the first couple of corners, braking nice and late, swing the car in, make sure the front end grips, ride the curb a little bit, upset the balance a wee bit before going in to turn 3, and we now just push, slight lift on the throttle and up to 7th gear now as we now go through turn 4. It's about keeping that front end and kiss the inside curb if you can, then try and free up the car for a better exit. And we're 2.5 tenths up on our previous best lap. Turn 5 can be quite challenging. We've gone a little bit wide, but again freeing up space on the exit before moving down now through the left right uphill chicane. Use a big chunk of curb and then free up the car for the exits. Try and straight line it if you can. Turn 9, very challenging. It's blind, and we just go up to 6th gear, keep the car planted, DRS on exit, and we're now 6 tenths up. A much better middle sector this time around as we come through into the final sector. Slow it down for the hairpin. Don't use the curb too much. It will unsettle the car. Then up through a left-hand kink. Again, don't use the curb. Car will go out of balance, and you've got to wait, plant the power, utilise the exit, and into this new section that came in some years ago. But it's now a nice tricky chicane. You've got to be firm with the curb, losing the rear on exit, unfortunately, and that's going to compromise our Delta all the way to line. It was a 6.5 tenth improvement. It only ends up as a 3.5 tenth improvement, and that ends up putting us P17. Not great, but let's get into the race and make up for it on Sunday.
Good afternoon from a very familiar setting. It's race day here in Spain, and with everything still to play for in the championship battle, there's no room for mistakes in a Grand Prix that's well known for creating them. It's 730 metres from pole position down to a slippery turn 1 here, the first of 16 corners around this 2.89-mile racetrack. The long, wide turn 3 and the uphill right-hander of turn 9 can both be taken full throttle in the right conditions, but I doubt very much we'll be seeing any of that today. Joining us today to oversee all the thrills and spills, it's Anthony Davidson. And great to see you. How are you feeling about the race today, and how are the circuit conditions from what you've seen?
Well, the surface looks clean enough, but I'm a little bit worried about the track temperature. It's pretty cool out there, which could give some teams difficulties when it comes to keeping their tyres in the right operating window. The cars out there that work their tyres hard and really put a lot of energy through them, they'll be the ones that are better off.
Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks for today's race. Charles Leclerc lines up on pole position, edging out Max Verstappen, who'll start from P2. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Bottas, Gasly, Lewis Hamilton, and Vettel, Butler, Magnussen, Weber, and Roman Grosjean. Ricciardo, Albon, George Russell and Hülkenberg, Perez, the captain, Lando Norris. They've taken a grid penalty, and Lance Stroll, Raikkonen and Robert Kubica takes the last spot on the grid. And with preparations almost complete, let's head down to the track.
Okay, so here we have it, the very wet Grand Prix. So what we're going to do, we're going to underfuel the car to have it nice and light for the start of the race, and then we can just utilise lean mixture throughout the Grand Prix to save fuel, because in the wet weather we're going to be using rich mix a lot less to try and really just keep traction completely under control. We are starting from P16, so there is a grid penalty in place, but we should have been higher up the field. But let's see what we can do in the wet. There's been known to be some stellar performances in the wet here at Spain, most notably Schumacher in '96. Let's see what we can do, as we have 5 red lights for the Spanish Grand Prix, and lights are out, away we go for Catalonia, and it seems okay to begin with. Then off the start we've bogged down just a little bit. The field ahead of us pulling away. Norris passes us on our left-hand side. There's Raikkonen and Stroll up behind Kubica. We've dropped down to 18th. We're going to go down the inside, just try and keep out of everyone's way, try and keep out the spray so we can at least see what we're doing. Back up into 16th place as we wrestle our car around. We just utilise that little bit of green runoff slightly, and we're just going to slot in behind Nico Hülkenberg 4 now. It's absolutely sodden conditions, and it appears the Ferrari of Leclerc has already got a clear lead. We're going to dive down the inside here of turn 4. Perez squeezing us, and we've had to go with some opposite lock, maybe sticking my nose where it shouldn't have been, but we managed to get past Hülkenberg in that move, up to 15th, and now we're going to try and make another move on Perez into turn 5, really just trying to muscle our way past the Racing Point driver, and that's exactly what we've done. Up into P14, because everyone is being very cautious in these early stages of the Grand Prix, and rightfully so. The weather is atrocious, and look at the opposite lock that we're having to put in to fight the car. George Russell up in a stellar 13th place for Williams, but that car is just not going to have the grip in these conditions, and we're in the slipstream now, still utilising that lean mix to keep the fuel under control. But can we make a move into the tight left-hander? He's braked early, he's braked very early as a matter of fact, so we're going to stick it up the inside. He left the door open, and we've muscled our way through into 13th place, and we find ourselves up behind our teammate Alexander Albon, who is behind Ricciardo, and Grosjean is in the final points-paying position for the Haas. So let's see what we can do versus my teammate in similar equipment. We've muscled our way up into 13th, and it's just absolutely chucking it down. It feels so pedestrian at the moment. Leclerc does lead, as stated. It looks like he's leading Bottas, then the Red Bulls, then Vettel, and Hamilton in 6th, not performing the very best. But we've dropped behind Albon on acceleration, but now, of course, we are going to be settling into the Grand Prix and seeing where we're strong and where we're weak versus our teammates. You see, we nearly clouted into the back of him, into the braking zone of turn 4. That's how much more confident I am on the brakes than Albon, but it's just about trying to follow him through the middle sector and trying to line him up at one of the best overtaking places on the circuit, which will be either turn 10, which is coming up soon, or, of course, into turn 1 out the final corner. But we've just got to measure our teammate, not make any mistakes, because of course he's going to be battling Grosjean, and we don't want to hit him and hamper his race. But here we go, out of turn 9 in the slipstream, turning the engine up, but unfortunately not getting the run we wanted, so turning it down, and we realistically just need a perfect run out of that corner if we're going to make a move on Albon. Ricciardo has got past Grosjean, as you can see, so he's up into 10th place, and he's not really getting away from us too much. As you see, we're wrestling the car through this long right-hander. Okay, so the heavy rain is going to transpire in around 5 minutes, and we're going to have light rain as Bottas now setting at the pace of the race. That's not too bad for Valtteri, and we've got a somewhat decent run out of this corner. Hopefully in the intermediate conditions we will prove to be a bit faster. We've tried to turn the engine up to overtaken standard. We can't fight though, but Albon's going to fight. He dummied to the right-hand side, and he's going to try and go round to the outside of Romain Grosjean in the wet. Can he get it done through turns 1 and 2? I've had to take to the I've gone in deep, and I've gone over the curb, so not great for me. But Albon with a fantastic move on Romain Grosjean, and he's now up into 11th place, and we've got to carry on. This is lap 4 now, and Grosjean is looking to struggle. He's not quite got what he needs in the grip of that Haas, and we're going to follow him through turn 9. Our car seemed more pliant than his. We're slightly out of position on the curb. However, we should be able to send one down the inside. We are going to do that into turn 10. We've had to go deep. I think Grosjean didn't see it coming. Slight bit of contact between the Haas and my Toro Rosso. But we are now up into 12th place, and we can continue chasing down Albon and Ricciardo, who's not actually getting away from him. So we appear to be on pace with the Renault, and it looks like we can fight 4 points here this afternoon. We move on to lap 7. Grosjean has really started to drop down here. We're up into P12 still, as stated, but the lap times are getting faster. We're a quarter of a second up on our personal best through the first sector. The rain does look like it's eased off a bit, but I don't think it's time for intermediates as of yet. And you can see that Ricciardo hasn't really lost touch with Magnussen or the McLaren of Devon Butler. So we could be on for a good position here. We just need to keep focusing this race, as we're just ever so slightly down through the middle sector and nearly hitting Alexander Albon in the rear. That's not what we want to be doing. We need to be working with our teammates to move up the field, not hitting each other, but progressing through the final sector. Can we maybe get one up for pass in the future? We're going to stick close through the final track. He's looking slow. He's not acceptable. Get a better out. Kane, we really, took left on the curb, but we did carry. We're pushing. Let's turn to Rich. Overtake mode as well. Charging past him on the pit straight, and that is us up into P11. We should successfully have the move done before turn 1. Yes, we do, and you can see now we're out the spray. It's really starting to lighten up on the screen with the rain, so it's going to be intermediate conditions sooner rather than later. As we now move on, we've got Butler battling Magnussen and Ricciardo right up behind them as we come up towards Sector 3. And Butler looks to be moving defensive. We've gone way too hot on the brakes trying to get close to him. We were 4 tenths up on our personal best on that lap. Albon looked like he was going to try and get through, but too deep. But can we try and stick with them through the final sector? We saw in our last lap, we were very competitive versus my teammate. Are we going to maybe line Daniel Ricciardo up for a move into turn 1? Let's indeed wait and see. And we've got a Ferrari in the pits by the looks of things. That will be Sebastian Vettel, as Charles Leclerc is leading this Grand Prix. What tyres is Vettel going to bolt on that Ferrari? Are we going to be able to see?
Cars are coming in for inters. It's touch and go, but could be worth the risk. We'll be ready if you want a box.
So there's a notification from Jeff. Vettel is on the inters. We saw it on the graphic, and that is Magnussen diving down the inside of Devon Butler. Has he made that move stick? He's just got to finish it through turn 2. Butler makes a mistake, and the position is retained. And you can see here, Vettel is indeed out on those intermediate tyres ahead of Williams. And also it would appear that one of the Racing Points has dived in. So we're getting the message now. Come in for intermediate tyres this lap, and that's exactly what we're going to do, as Butler and Magnussen are still going at it through turn 5. And all we've got to do is stick close to these guys, because obviously we don't know who's going to come into the pits. You would assume all of them, because once we get that message of a new strategy, it's going to go out to everyone. You can see the AI struggling on these full wet tyres, so they're not as OP as they were in F1 2018, and we're going to sit right behind Daniel Ricciardo.
This rain could be with us for a while. Light rain conditions for the foreseeable future.
As we go through the final sector, getting that update, light rain to be with us for the foreseeable future. We've got the fuel nearly back in check 9 laps into this race, but we're going to come in for those inters. Unfortunately, Albon's either going to have to double stack, or he's going to have to go around again, which is going to cost him quite a bit of time. But will it cost him the time of the double stack? Let's see what Toro Rosso decides to do. We are the lead driver. That means we should get priority. Magnussen, Butler, Ricciardo, we're all in. Albon carries on. Sorry, Alexander, but you know, it was going to be the lead driver that got the option to come and pit, and we are right up the gearbox of the Renault. And let's see, can the Toro Rosso boys do a good job? Can we jump anyone in this first round of pit stops? So they're all in. Out goes the Alfa Romeo. Weber, he's doing really well this Grand Prix, so we're in. Intermediates on. Magnussen comes past. Ricciardo's coming past. And unfortunately, so is Devon Butler. And we haven't gained anything. In fact, I would say we've lost time as Perez surges through on the intermediate tyre. There goes George Russell as well. We have lost a good few positions due to that additional lap that we did. Of course, we didn't get the strategy offered to us until lap 9. That was the lap we were on. So we didn't know to come in, and we've lost time, we've lost positions. Thankfully, our old rival, Devon Butler, just up the road from us. And can we put the time in? Can we put the effort in? Can we nearly, oh so nearly, wipe into the back of Devon Butler going into turn 10? They are really struggling. I don't know if it's just the Williams struggling, pushing Butler back into me. But Albon now in the pits. Let's see how much time he's lost as Vettel sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, the 38.3. I think Leclerc at some point did lose the lead to Bottas because he was putting the pace on in the early stages of the race. We've got a semi-decent exit here out of the chicane and out of the final corner. Can we crank the engine up? And will we be challenging Butler and Russell into turn 1 as Albon comes out the pits? He is unfortunately going to be behind us. Will he be behind the McLaren and the Renault behind? I'm not sure. Butler tries to make the move on George Russell. That appears to be exactly what he's done. Russell fighting back though into the second part of the corner, and these two Formula F2 drivers last year as well as myself going hammer and tongs. We are going to stick to the inside. Slight contact made with the Williams. It is in the wet conditions. He's got the power out of turn 3, but we are more confident on the brakes. Yes, we go there. Just about not making contact with Devon Butler, and both of us through on the Williams of George Russell. And let's get past Butler and start chasing back down the road to try and get back up behind our Kevin Magnussen's and our Daniel Ricciardo's. We are 1.7 seconds up on our personal best lap so far on lap 11, and Valtteri Bottas into the 136s. Charles Leclerc also into the 136s. So the front runners really starting to pick up the pace as these inters get up to temperature and the track starts to dry out oh so slowly with, of course, the lighter weather, and Butler looking tentative through the chicane. Then again, we equally as so. We need to try and get a good exit, and we're going to get slipstream down the main straight. We're not going to have DRS in these conditions, but can we close up to the back of that Renault-powered McLaren? It's a 39.1 from us. We have half a second to Butler as we cross the line. We're closing. We're closing. Are we closing enough? Answer is no, and we're not going to quite go for a Butler dive bomb into turn 1. But here we go. We're coming through one more time. What is it this time around for us? It's a 37.8. We're getting more confident with the car and the tyres, and we're closer this time around. Up behind Butler in the slipstream. We're to the outside as we're going to go into turn 1. Will Butler be late on the brakes? He is. Tries to fight the position, but we just sweep round the outside of turn 1, which becomes the inside of turn 2. Light drift due to the use of the curb, and we have moved ourselves up into 11th place, past the McLaren of Devon Butler. And now it's our job to close down to the points, which is Daniel Ricciardo, and it's only taken us till lap 14 to catch up to him, and we get the message that Charles Leclerc, who was fighting on pole and fighting for the lead of this race, is out, and it looks like he's retired on the pit straight. So we've got yellow flags going into turn 1, and there is Leclerc parked up. That's us up into 10th place, so we are in the points, and Ricciardo, Perez and Magnussen only just up the road, and they are guys that we could beat. So lap 15, we're not even halfway through the Spanish Grand Prix yet, and we have closed up to the back of Daniel Ricciardo.
The tyre situation is an interesting one, but I think the right call is to stick with what we've got right now.
So we had Jeff in our ear telling us about the tyres. He feels like the rain is easing up. I mean, from where I am sat, it's not really easing up, but we are screeching past Daniel Ricciardo. We've got Honda power versus Renault power, and due to running rich and overtake, we were able to pass Danny Rick up into 9th place into turn 1, and Jeff was telling us that the tyres are in an interesting state, so he feels that we're on inters for now, and that's the right choice, but could it potentially dry out? The way it's going at the moment, I don't think so. Anyway, we are now past half distance in the Grand Prix.
Okay, we're starting to see a bit of tyre wear. You shouldn't have too much trouble for the time being, but the grip is going to start falling away.
Okay, so getting a heads up about the tyre wear, of course, I don't think we're going to be able to carry one set of inters to the end of the Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton now with the fastest lap on a 36.4. We are pushing and we're trying to catch Perez.
Okay, on this rain clearing up is about 10 minutes, so just keep your concentration out there.
So rain apparently to ease up in about 10 minutes. I would call that around 7 to 8 laps. So we're looking at the rain clearing up around lap 27, lap 28. That's about 5 laps from the end of this race. Can we get our set of inters that we're currently on to last that long? We shall see, while trying to push and catch Sergio Perez, who is in the pits at the end of lap 20, as is Sebastian Vettel. And is Vettel going to be ahead of us going into turn 1? It's going to be very close with the Ferrari driver. I don't really want to tangle with him, but I don't really want to fight him either. So just to keep carrying the speed, we've gone round the outside and we are past Sebastian Vettel. Now he is on a fresh set of inters, and I imagine he's going to get past me very, very soon. But we've got Lucas Weber and Kevin Magnussen just up the road, and I feel we can catch them, even if there's another round of pit stops. I'm just going to give Vettel the room here in turn 4, and let him go through, because he's going to be much faster, and it's only going to hamper me if I try and fight him. So Vettel goes through. Let's try and stick in his slipstream on the straights just to get a little extra few miles an hour. But it's interesting they've pitted now when it's definitely going to dry up. And interestingly enough, Weber and Magnussen both pit. So looking at the tyre wear, the only tyre of concern is the front left at 56%. All the other tyres I feel could last in this Grand Prix. Now, Vettel has just had one of the Red Bulls come out in front of him. I'm not 100% sure who that is, but we've got 11 laps to go, 12 if you include the one that I'm on, and we are up into 6th place. Alexander Albon was running in 7th momentarily, but he, of course, came into the pits, and upon realising everyone was pitting, I figured probably worth me coming in, because yes, these tyres could last to the end, but what if I get a puncture? Then I have to pit, and I lose time because of the puncture. So we're coming in the end of lap 25, end of lap 24, beginning of lap 25. We're going to fit a new set of intermediate tyres. Those warm ones come off. And where are we going to come out? We're going to come out behind Magnussen, behind Perez, and behind Weber. However, versus Perez, we have 5 lap younger intermediate tyres. And we're actually closer to Weber now than we were when he came into the pits. So I feel we've done a very good job at the end of that stint. And I feel we could push on, because even if it does start to dry up now, our tyres, because they're younger, they're going to have more grip. So let's get the pedal down, and let's close up to the back of this 4-car train. It's going to be a big old scrap for 6th position in this race, I do believe. So, start at lap 26. We're in the slipstream of Lucas Weber. We are on the outside of Lucas Weber, going towards turn 1. Can we make the sweeping move around the outside? Weber, deep on the brakes, keeps his nose in, but like we've done several times this afternoon, made the move around the outside, then held the inside line for turn 2, and that has been successful. Keep the power on through turn 3. That is us up into 8th place, and we can now chase down Sergio Perez and Kevin Magnussen. We are on for a very strong lap here at the end of lap 26. We're going to come across the line. What is the time? It is a 1:37.2, personal best lap of the Grand Prix, 1.2 seconds down on Perez, who is closing in the slipstream of Kevin Magnussen. Hopefully those guys start scrapping, because if they do, they're going to start moving towards me. End of lap 27, beginning of lap 28. It's another new personal best, a 36.9. We're in the slipstream of Sergio Perez. He might have Mercedes power, but we've got the slipstream, and we're giving it everything into turn 1. Can we once again make our same move? Sweep round the outside. We went very late on the brakes that time around, but move successful. Job done. That's us up into 7th. And the rain has now stopped coming down. So it's now time to see where our younger inters hang on in these conditions. It's going to be time to consider, you know, when is it worth coming in for dries, if ever. I'm going to consider swapping to soft tyres, because if we come in end of this lap or next, we might make the time back. If we come in any later than that, it's not worth pitting for the tyres. So I'm really going to try and see what Magnussen does here. So let's just follow him, try and catch up to him and pass him on track if we can, but we've got to see what the Haas does. The AI tends to be coded to know when the weather's going to change. So let's keep up with it as we move on to lap 29. Coming through. DRS has been enabled. That usually means we're at the crossover point. So we now need to think, is it worth coming in at the end of this lap and fitting the soft compound tyre? We'll only have 4 laps on it, and we're going to have to close up about 25 to 28 seconds, because that's the amount of time it takes for a pit stop here. We've got to make that decision by the end of Sector 3. I'm going to copy what Magnussen does. If he comes in, I'm coming in. If he stays out, I'm staying out. We're going to pass, or try to pass, the Haas on track. What does Magnussen do? Magnussen stays out, we're staying out. Anyone behind me, what do? Perez stays out, Weber stays out. What about Ricciardo? Ricciardo stays out. We've got DRS. As long as we stay within 1 second, we're going to get DRS 2 times on a lap. We've got 30% wear on our tyres, and even though the track's drying out, remember, our tyres are younger than the car ahead, so we have the advantage. We don't need to do anything drastic. We just need to keep calm, keep smooth, keep the tyres in check, and the move will come. Either Magnussen will make a mistake, or he just won't be able to keep up the pace in the corners. So Jeff's getting in my ear saying we need to change the tyres, but if no one else comes in, I could be sacrificing a P6, a potential P6 or a solid P7. So I said I'm going to box just in case of what the AI do. We want to be ready. So let's see. We're going to come to the end of lap 30. What's happening? Magnussen through the final chicane. Magnussen doesn't pit. I don't pit. Perez again doesn't pit. What about Lucas Weber? Lucas Weber does not pit. What about Daniel Ricciardo? He doesn't pit. We've got DRS. We are charging towards turn 1, side by side, pulling ahead of the Haas. We pull past Kevin Magnussen. We should try and retake the racing line. We brake nice and early just to keep the car under control. When Magnussen can't retaliate because his tyres are done. The track is too dry for these tyres. Magnussen can't respond. That's us up in a P6. We've come from P16 to P6. And Pierre Gasly has unfortunately fallen to P5. We're going to come across the line, end of lap 31. We're in the 38s. The tyres aren't dead, but we are 30 seconds behind Pierre Gasly. Kevin Magnussen's not going to give up on this attack, though. He's going to try into turn 1 round the outside with a bit of DRS. We just close him off, make it so he can't come back at us down the inside of turn 2. Job done, in my opinion. Valtteri Bottas has taken the flag at the Spanish Grand Prix, and apparently we set a personal best in the first sector this time around, but through the final couple of corners, our tyres are completely shot. It's a dry track on Inter tyres, but we're coming through P6 and a solid drive in Spain.
Okay, good job, mate. Really well done. That was a fantastic drive.
After an excellent performance at the Grand Prix, I'm sure there'll be plenty of celebrations tonight amongst the Mercedes team, and they certainly deserve it.
So there you have it. Valtteri Bottas wins the Spanish Grand Prix. 2.3 seconds ahead Hamilton, who 40 his way up to second. Max Verstappen brings it home third for Red Bull, and Sebastian Vettel up to fourth for Ferrari. Gasly finishing in his regular position of slowest of the top 6 guys, but of course Leclerc retired from the race. Ourselves coming in, fighting through to P6 from P16. I thought a fantastic drive considering the conditions. We'll never know what would have happened if we'd swapped to dryers, but I think personally the best we could have got today is 6th position, but I still feel we did very well, all things considered. Magnussen with a good drive for Haas up to 7th, and Sergio Perez was really on the pulse with what tyres he needed to be on and when, and he came up from 15th into 8th place. Fantastic drive from Checo Perez there in the Racing Point. Lucas Weber finished where he started, but was running as high as 6th at one point, and then Daniel Ricciardo bringing it home for a point in P10, and Devon Butler really fell through the field as the race went on. Right at the start, he was battling quite hard for 7th and 8th place, but ended up, unfortunately, only bringing it home in P14. Our retirements from this Grand Prix, Lance Stroll and Charles Leclerc, who looked in good contention to maybe win it all. But we look at the driver standings now. Vettel leads the way on 92 points. Both Mercedes boys of Hamilton and Bottas on 72. Then comes Verstappen on 57 points. Pierre Gasly, because he finished the day, will jump Charles Leclerc 46 to 41. Then we have Checo Perez in 7th place on 38 points. Magnussen moves up to 8th on 26. Then myself and Stroll are tied on 23. And then going back next in the championship is Daniel Ricciardo in 11th, but 9 points there. So big gap between myself and Danny Rick. Looking at the constructors side of things, Mercedes jump Ferrari. They are now 11 points clear at the top of the table. Ferrari really need Leclerc to start performing. Then comes Red Bull on 103 points in 3rd. Racing Point, 61 points in 4th place. Haas, 27 points in 5th. Toro Rosso, ourselves in 6th, 23 points. If Albon could just get a few, we could jump up to P5. But let's catch up with Claire about our wet weather performance.
Amazing performance out there. I'm sure you're pretty happy with that. Did you feel comfortable in the wet weather today?
Really good. Honestly, really, really good. Car just danced in the wet weather. Like, sure, there were some slides at points, but kept it all under control and kept the momentum going.
Did you have the wrong fuel strategy today, or was it your management?
Neither really. We wanted to underfuel the car. That was the plan, and we just kept it running light. Could have kept some more for the late laps, but I still think it went well.
Well, thanks anyway.
So let's just have a catch up with what Lucas Weber thought, because this hopefully should be a little bit more in-depth considering our performance. He outlined that we flew through the pack in the race, moved from 16th to 6th. What was their secret? They definitely have been performing really well recently. Can't really put my finger on what it could be. New aero package, strategy, or just a better car. Either way, he's happy for me and the team. So that's good to know that Weber, we still have that respect from being teammates in F2. So that's really nice to see. That they're going to build those characters throughout the season. But that has been the Spanish Grand Prix. Guys, I hope you have enjoyed. Please leave a like if you did and comment any feedback down below. That was our first wet race. Next time out, it is the crown in the jewel of the Formula 1 calendar. No, the jewel in the crown of the Formula 1 calendar. That's the phrase that I was supposed to say. I probably should edit that out, but I'm not going to because some of it's laziness and some of it is just ab lib. I don't really script these things if you guys hadn't really noticed. I just babble incoherently for the period of time that the video is. Anyway, Monaco next time out. Not really a big power track, so hopefully we'll do okay there. Qualifying is going to be very, very important to get a good grid position. And then, of course, the race, just utilising what opportunities we do get to pass. And, of course, hopefully no one will end up attacking us, as it were. But if you want to be kept up to date with the content that comes to the channel, remember to hit that subscribe button and enable those notifications. And I will see you all next time.